Just going over some of the HomeStory Cup replays. From a while back, but here we have our fresh series, and spawning in the bottom left-hand corner of Ancient Cistern, we have the German Terran player representing Team Mouse. It is HeRoMaRinE. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Protoss player representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. Calm down, Papi. We're going to be kicking things off with a proxy as 2 SCVs are being sent out across the map for those Raxes. There is a Reaper cliff right next door, so we are looking for Reapers to dive into the main. It's going to be an easy start here for Trigger. Now, coming into the series, I was about to praise Trigger. I would say his best matchup is PvT. We've been seeing Trigger take down players like Bjorn, take down players like Gumiho, take down players like Clem, and even go toe-to-toe with Maru and WTL. Like, Trigger, his PvT is very impressive. But we'll see if he can showcase it here at HomeStory Cup, because HeRoMaRinE is already just throwing a wrench in the works. Probe Scout will confirm the Rax is missing, but in this matchup, it's not unheard of to throw down the Rax hidden in the main, or at the natural, sometimes at the third base. So Trigger, he only has a piece of the puzzle. And he is taking this very seriously. Oh my god. Zealot on the way, throws down a second gateway as well, delays his expansion, and even walls off. He's looking for it. Oh my god. No shot. Papi, HeRoMaRinE. He's floating into the main. He's proxy maraudering to tackle out the disrespect. Oh my god, the proxy marauder in the main base of Trigger. Ay. Trigger has no idea, is scouting again, confirming that there is still no Rax or no follow-up back at home. Little does he know that the call is coming from inside the house. White Idra, is that you? This is a White Idra build, by the way. He's a Mexican Terran player. He's been doing this for years, Papi, for years. HeRoMaRinE, clearly a fan of the Mexican Terran, as Marauders have arrived. Concussive Shell on the way. Trigger, he does have a shield battery here at the natural base, but not in the main. Again, he still hasn't checked. He's checking! Oh! He dips in, he gets eyes on the proxy, but is it too late? We're up to 3 Marauders already. Good target firing on the Stalker. Up! Oh, and the Stalker is going to go down. Likewise, we lose a Marauder. The probes are doing a lot of damage. The surround is real. The Marauders go down. Again, Marauder's not the best unit against probes at all, as Trigger is camping the production. Is able to slow this down. With still no shield battery on the high ground. How must we do? Top ourselves back up. God, but these Marauders are still terrifying. They take down another Stalker. Up. Second Stalker's barely going to hold on. Again, boys, they have to be pulled. I feel like probes, they have to be staying here, camping the production. Oh god! Trigger has to be careful. Takes down another Marauder. And back at home, HeRoMaRinE, he's just now throwing down a factory. He's just now transitioning. Does have a higher worker count. Doesn't take down another Stalker. But again, even though HeRoMaRinE, he has more workers, Trigger, he's got a second Nexus. He can make 2 probes at a time. And at this point, HeRoMaRinE, he's just bleeding out units. There we go. He does cancel the Marauders. Working towards Marines instead. And Trigger has held. He has held this quite nicely. Looking at the units lost tab here. Oh god. 10 Marauders. 10 Marauders went down for 2 Stalkers and 6 probes. To be fair, lost mining time. Sure, I get it. Like, there was a lot of lost mining time there for Trigger. But he's got a Nexus. Like, he's got a second base. It's fine. He can afford it. He can make 2 probes at a time. I would say the Trigger is in a better position right now. And back at home, Big Gabe, he throws down his Nexus and his third base at around the same time. He's double expanding because he has to. He's just that far behind. He's coming back in. Oh my, he's an animal. Does attempt to float back in. Back at home, we got a factory on the way, a starport. For tanks, for maybe even a Banshee. Maybe Banshees would help him just keep Trigger busy back at home. Oh. As yeah, our Terran player here, he's got some catching up to do. Got a ways to go. As our Canadian Protoss throws down his Robotics Bay. Going to be working towards Colossi. There's that Banshee we were talking about. Cloak and Banshees. It makes a lot of sense. HeRoMaRinE has very little back at home to defend, and the last thing he wants to do is to be stuck at home with tanks and just turtling up and allow Trigger to get away with a third and get away with a fourth. Banshees or Liberators or anything is really required here to try to keep Trigger honest. And try to do some kind of economic damage across the map. As the Bay is done, Twilight Council's on the way. First Observer is moving out. We'll get eyes on the army on the low ground at least. Gets eyes on the tanks. Third tank on the way. Sees a third Rax being built. And does get eyes on the tech lab researching. He now knows that Banshees are on the way. Getting a very important scout here from Trigger. Now these Banshees will not catch him unawares. They shouldn't catch him unawares. Do we have another Observer? We do. Okay, we do have another Observer back at home. We have Stalkers in position. Cloak is now done. A scan is not going to take down the Observer. Oh, a rough scan from Big Gabe. And he's going to get a couple of probes. 2 probes, not too bad, but he's going to have a hard time finding more damage. There's potential here at the third. Yes, Trigger, not quite in position. 4 more probes go down. Oh god. 7 more probes go down. And this Banshee is going to be safe here in the dead space, in between the bases. But not too bad. 7 workers for 1 unit. Pretty good stuff here. Especially considering that we're doubling down. We have Hyperflight Rotors, continued Banshee production as well. Third base is being taken. Tanks are being spread quite nicely between all these bases. HeRoMaRinE, he is just fortifying himself very nicely here. Even walling up, protecting himself against charge lots. But can he get this up and running? Before he does, Trigger, he wants to be active as well. God, he's making he's got 3 starports, man. He's making 3 Banshees, or 2 Banshees at a time alongside a Raven. It's a very interesting form of mech. Almost TY-esque. Mech against Protoss. You don't see it too often, but every now and then, it's a treat. Este HeRoMaRinE. We have a 4th base about to be landed on location. Additional Banshees have been revealed. And if Trigger doesn't see this coming ahead of time, he could be caught a little bit exposed. He's working on his own 4th. Yeah, 3 Banshees at a time. So as you can imagine, the problem with going tank Banshee is that you have very little anti-air. So if Trigger was able to recognize what was happening, and if he started transitioning into Sky Toss, he would just have his way with this army. But before that happens, he catches these Banshees, takes down a couple of them in the center of the map. He does have Observer speed on the way to help keep up. Gravitic boosters. There you go. And HeRoMaRinE, he's just turtling. He's just turtling, Bob. We got more CCs soon. I imagine planetaries on the way. He is just turtling up heavily here. We have additional armories, soon to be additional factories. But that was the problem that TY ran into. Because again, TY and GSL, he was playing mech, well, this variation of mech quite a bit. And again, any kind of investment into a Skytoss army, into an air army, can be devastating for the Terran. As for now, we're just going to be sharking between the bases. Overcharges, not enough to keep the cannon alive. Oof. Two-shotting these Stalkers, my god. These have been good trades, but HeRoMaRinE, he does have to be careful. Does have to be careful not to bleed out too much. Oof. So he does lose another Banshee. Back at home. Fusion core on the way, another starport. This can lead into battle cruisers, which is kind of like the ideal late game against Protoss. Like, unironically, it's actually really powerful. It's just really difficult. It's really difficult to get into BCs in this matchup, and we'll see if HeRoMaRinE can pull it off. Oh, as we dive on the army, more Banshees are going down. Tanks are not in position. Oof. And it looks like HeRoMaRinE, he is going to be able to hold on. Does force back the Protoss army. Only for a moment. Again, only one tank, sorry, within range here to protect this planetary. There is enough to buy a little bit more time. Reinforcements are coming from across the map. Oh, as Trigger is going to rotate over, and this position is much more heavily fortified. Oof. Take some big volleys to the face. So we have a planetary, sensor towers, turrets, 5 tanks. There it is. Battle cruisers are on the horizon, and I'm concerned there's no answer to that. There's no answer to the BCs. Trigger, he needs to break one of these bases now before this gets out of hand, and it may be too late. Probes are falling. Stalkers, they do have to respect this. They do have to come back home. 10, 11 probes are going to be going down. Again, Trigger, he's really adamant about making a ground army work. We see a scan. Likewise, HeRoMaRinE, he wants to make sure if there is a Skytoss transition that he's able to get eyes on it, but there is none. I'm sure HeRoMaRinE, he's very happy with that. We have another planetary on the way. Trigger is maxed out, and once again, this position is still looking a little bit vulnerable. 2 more tanks go down. A couple of auto turrets have to be thrown down as well to hold on. Yeah, and the battle cruisers are revealed. They teleport on top of the Stalkers. They shut them down. Likewise, it looks like the planetary is being broken as well. And the BCs are not turning around, they're just pushing out across the map instead. Trigger not quite getting the base. He's going to recall back home instead. Does he have enough? Oh, it's going to be close. Here we go, Trigger. He does get 1 battle cruiser. Have another massive weapon of Stalkers. The Yamadas go off. And I do think Trigger does have enough to compete against this army for now. The problem is that we have more BCs on the way. Oh, can he get another? He will barely get a second battle cruiser. Because the planetary survived, it's not taking too long for HeRoMaRinE to just resaturate his bases. Planetary's back up and running. Another battlecruiser goes down. Gabe, he's been a little bit wasteful here. He's been bleeding out a lot of BCs, and he doesn't have too many to begin with. And meanwhile, this base is going to go down. Likewise, Banshee's also going to be threatening the fresh mining bases here of Trigger. To be fair, Trigger, he lost 11 workers. He's still on 88. He had actually over 90 probes. So he can afford to lose some. He's actually making 6 probes at a time. Jesus. We don't need that many, Pap. You don't need that many. As you can see, these Banshees just outmaneuver the Stalkers. They're speedy boys. They're pretty quick. But Trigger has had enough. He's not chasing down those Banshees. He's moving out across the map. He allowed this planetary to live earlier, but it looks like he wants to try to fix that. Oh. But we have 9 battle cruisers. We're about to have 13. That's 13 Yamatos, by the way. Ay, ay, ay. And Trigger, yeah, he just really wants to make this mass stalker style work. And it can, especially when the battlecruisers are at low numbers, but I think we've hit critical mass. I think at this point, HeRoMaRinE, he doesn't care about the stalkers anymore. It's just a little bit too much. He even has a Raven to support for an anti-armor missile. Maybe even some disables. We're about to have 15 BCs. And Planetary's, sorry, Nexus is going to be going down. Upgrades RG powered. Banshee's just wreaking havoc in the main. That's a kill, not a cancel on the Nexus. And HeRoMaRinE, he has snowballed out of control. Initially, he was maybe again a little bit adventurous, a little bit too adventurous with his first couple of battlecruisers. But here, when he moves out with 13 of them, it's too much, Papi. It's too much. Show us the Yamatos. But Jesus. And 1 BC will fall. But again, because of the positioning as well from HeRoMaRinE, he has dead space to work with. He can pull back. Trigger, he recognizes that he can't really tango with this army, so he has to back off. He goes for a counterattack instead. And we're entering base trade territory. And the problem is that even if this planetary goes down, we still have all these tanks. We still have all these tanks here. We're still defending the third. GG gets called. And HeRoMaRinE, with a variation of mech with Sky Terran, takes down Trigger in game 1. GG. That was nasty. Good. GG, well played. Again, BCs, they're actually really good against Protoss, but in your typical kind of Protoss versus Terran matchup, it's really difficult to actually get there without being punished, without losing too much. We did see that with the mass Banshee style initially, HeRoMaRinE, Big Gabe, he was able to buy himself a lot of time. He did a great job at just keeping Trigger busy, hindering the economy, getting a lot of worker kills, killing stalkers, just doing so much damage with them, eventually leading the way to be able to get into those battlecruisers. Likewise, because it was a mech variation, he had a lot of tanks, planetaries. His defenses were looking quite solid. Very powerful. GG, well played. Ay, ay, ay. Not sure why Trigger kept going ground. I think it was just a late reaction from Trigger, as in, if you remember, it took him a long time to scout the battlecruisers. You can definitely make an argument. We were talking about it beforehand when we saw the tank Banshee composition, where Skytos would be superior against tank Banshee. And at that point, it's something that a Protoss player should be working towards already. I would say, though, to give Trigger a little bit of credit, he probably hasn't played against that before. It's a very unorthodox style, very unusual. So having the wherewithal to transition your tech that early on, or recognize what exactly is happening, I'm sure Trigger hasn't been in that situation too often. So yeah, I don't blame him. I don't blame him for not reacting differently to that, just because how often do you play against, you know, Tank Banshee? It's not too often. And especially after the initial proxy Marauder, I'm sure Trigger probably felt like he was ahead, and he probably felt like he could get away with staying on a lower tech army and snowballing and eventually punishing the Terran player. I'm sure he was feeling confident at the time. Regardless, we're now diving into game number 2. That was a wild game 1 though. To bring it back, if you weren't there for the start of the game, HeRoMaRinE, he went proxy Marauder in the main base of Trigger. In the base. Disgusting. And here we go, spawning in the top left-hand corner. In the top left-hand corner of Gressfarm, we have the German Terran player representing Team Mouse, leading the series 1-0. It is HeRoMaRinE. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Protoss representing Team Basilisk. It is Trigger. Oh, hello, Fiant. Fiant, good morning. Toria. Oh, wait, that's not right. We casted you early. We casted your series against Trigger. It was Smurge, Bobby. It was Smurge. Feel supply block, man. Feel supply block. But well done. You looked good. Very impressed, Fiant. Very impressed with your series. We were casting you earlier. No, it's okay, Poppy. It's okay. Did well. GG. So we are getting into this. So far, the Rax is at home. Important to bear in mind, as HeRoMaRinE did go for a proxy in the previous game. As he is going for what looks to be a Rax expand. Only has a single gas geyser and is looking to take a CC on the low ground. Never forget that. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay, Poppy. It's okay. Catching up. Who is the NA player here? True. But yeah, from here, we just see Trigger also going for his own gate expand. So a standard opener here from Trigger, likewise economic opener from HeRoMaRinE. A very stark contrast compared to what happened in game 1. Very different from our Terran, and I appreciate it. I'm sure Trigger appreciates it as well. The series versus Geralt, you can see. Oh yeah. Definitely an endurance test. Definitely require a lot of stamina to play in an offline event like that. No spoilers, Papi. No spoilers, Fiant. We haven't casted it yet. We're casting that next. We're casting your series versus Geralt next. We'll still have Uno Mas after this. Uno Mas. As HeRoMaRinE is going for a really interesting location for the proxy starport. Is here towards the southern portion of the map, very far back. That's the most interesting thing to me, is that this is the standard proxy location here, right outside the main base. And then if we want to be safe, we throw it back a little bit further over here as well, in the center of the map. But HeRoMaRinE throws it back even further on his own side of the map. So a very safe location from Big Gabe. Meanwhile, the Adept does make it across the map, is going to deny quite a lot of mining time here from these two SCVs. Does get eyes on the Hellions, as actually we even have Marines just pushing out across the map as well. Trigger woefully unprepared. We have one Stalker at home to defend. The boys, they have to be pulled back. do now have a second Stalker. A third is on the way, but a Stalker is going to be focused down. Up. So far, good target firing on the Hellions. Just making sure they don't get out of control with their splash damage. They will be focused down. This could have been so much worse. Trigger, he will defend. Meanwhile, Proxy BC? No shot. Oh my god. He's clowning, Poppy. I appreciate it. You know, Trigger, it's like, you know, how often does he go to Europe, right? He's in Europe for the first time. You know, he's experiencing Sweden. Now he's experiencing Germany. And Big Gabe, he just wants Trigger to feel at home. He's like, Papi, I'll play like your people. I'll go full NA. And this is why I was so perplexed as to why I was so far back. I assumed it was going to be like a Proxy Liberator or a Proxy Medevac. Which is why I expected to be closer, but now it makes sense. Now, for it to be so much further back, for it to be so hidden, to go for Proxy Battlecruisers like this, it does make sense. It's all coming together. As Trigger is able to handle the initial aggression very nicely, cleans up the Marines, cleans up the Hellions, doesn't lose too much back at home. Only 3 probes. As he's able to get his third base up and running. Meanwhile, Trigger is none the wiser. He was scouting, he was being active on the map earlier, but he doesn't come across the proxy as the first battlecruiser is almost done. German hospitality. Yeah. He's just being nice, Bobby. He just, you know, Trigger, he likes it. He likes the battlecruiser. He's like, oh, it's like I'm playing against Ruff on the ladder. Or Nathanius. Or I'm thinking of like NA Terran players. Like, Miguelito doesn't do this. Benito doesn't do this. But you know, the barcodes on the NA ladder. Let's go. As HeRoMaRinE, he's even double expanding behind this, working on his third and his fourth CC at the same time. Very greedy stuff here at a Big Gabe. The first BC is looking to dip into the natural. What do we have at home to defend? The Stalkers are active on the map. They're not back at home. Uh-oh. We do have weapons available. There we go. 3 Stalkers are on the way. Battlecruiser does reveal itself and is going to be able to focus down one of those probes. Good blink here from Trigger, but oh, he's still going to lose one of those Stalkers. Again, with these wings, just trying to preserve these Stalkers as best he can. And it looks like Trigger will barely force the blink. Barely forces the teleport. Oh, he can finish it up! Let's go! One of us! He gets it! Oh my god. Gabe, a bit of an unfortunate location for the teleports. Trigger in position. Clearly, he knew ahead of time that that's exactly where Big Gabe would go. Very nice snipe. As the second BC is diving into the main once again. We have a third in production. Yamato on the way. This time we have Raxus, so it's not going to be mech. Thank God. It's not mech this time. It is going to be bio. Another battlecruiser shows up. Now the question becomes, can HeRoMaRinE defend? Charge is done. Bear that in mind. And we don't have stim. We don't have combat shields. These are vanilla Marines. The tanks are falling. The Colossus just raining down on those Marines as well. Even though Trigger didn't have anything at home to defend, Big Gabe, he had to bring that BC back. And even with it, he's in a lot of trouble. Here we go, another battlecruiser is diving in. Trying to focus on those Stalkers, but it looks like we can get another BC. Oh, we just barely do not. Oh, Trigger actually losing a lot here. He does bleed out a lot of units. Big tank shots. As HeRoMaRinE is getting away with his fourth base. Again, he double expanded. If he can get this up and running, like he's already got a massive worker lead. He's just going to get further ahead. And Trigger, up. He does come across the would-be planetary. Is going to deny it. Battlecruisers are coming in. But Terran player has to be careful. CC is on fire, is under threat, and one more volley, and it is going to go down. We do get the Yamato off on the Warp Prism. But HeRoMaRinE loses his 4th base. Now, despite having... He has 80 SCVs, by the way. He has so many workers, but he is oversaturated. He is not mining efficiently at all. We have pretty comparable economies. That's a kill, not a cancel on the CC. Big Gabe, a little bit too slow there. Slow on the cancel. And again, as a result, even though Big Gabe has more workers, he's not really making use of it. We dive on top of the army. Another cancel on the 4th base. The tanks are exposed. Not much at all to support them. And the last tank is going to fall. Battle cruisers are holding onto the 3rd base at least. The trigger is not slowing down. Proxy still hasn't been found out. Still just chugging along. With Yamato, I mean, this army is pretty terrifying from HeRoMaRinE. But again, there's still no tanks, no Marines. Stim is still not done either. We're diving on top of the battlecruisers. The battlecruisers are the only thing keeping HeRoMaRinE in this game. And they're going down. Oof. Another solid blink. Can we teleport away? We barely get the Yamato off on the Colossus. 2 battlecruisers will survive. Just barely. Stim is about to finish up as well, but we just don't really have too much of a bioforce at all. The tank not within range. The 3rd base is under threat. The boys, they have to be pulled. HeRoMaRinE, he's in a lot of trouble. Again, a lot of his supply are in workers. Another battlecruiser gets targeted. Can we get the last one? Oh, it can't teleport. He can't teleport away. He doesn't need to. He's holding. Meanwhile, across the map, Trigger able to saturate his own 4th. Oh, battlecruiser teleports out. Very bold move. HeRoMaRinE desperately trying to get his own 4th base up and running. Good scan on the observer. There's 1 BC left and it's barely alive. As Trigger goes for a massive warp into the main, and it will kind of finish. Half of it finishes. As Trigger at the same time is pushing on the front lines, trying to get on top of that tank, but he just barely cannot. And from here, I would say that, yeah, things are still really up in the air. Doomdrop is moving out. Like, HeRoMaRinE, he's now got his 4th. This is the big thing here, is that he has his 4th up and running. It's a planetary. It's fully saturated. He has a better economy than Trigger. Straight up does. Trigger's been doing a great job at fighting back. At trading, but... Trigger, he just doesn't have eyes on this. He does go for a Zealot run right here towards the south, but again, he doesn't see the 4th base. Doomdrop trying to come in from behind. But Trigger is kind of being given the opportunity here to bounce back in this game. Now with double robot production, we can get into Colossus, we can get into Disruptors as well. 4 base versus 4 base. Of course, the Protoss would like to be up on bases, so I would still give the edge to HeRoMaRinE definitely, but Trigger, he's looking to stabilize. He isn't there yet, especially considering that HeRoMaRinE is about to max out, and once he does, he's going to be quite active. Trigger finally gets eyes on the 4th base. I'm sure if he had seen it sooner, he probably would have been trying to punish it. This Trigger is moving out. A lot of the bio army is on the map, actually. These tanks... Okay, there are plenty of marauders. that's a lot of marauders. 19. There are as many marauders as there are marines. Meanwhile, the drop on the right-hand side is going to dive on top of this Colossus. It looks like HeRoMaRinE is going to get it. Up! Oh! Bit of friendly fire. The Colossus goes down. Big pick-off here for our Terran. Meanwhile, Trigger, it looks like he finally... Oh, never mind. is not going to come across the proxy. But he does come across the 5th base. And this may be a kill. Oh, the SCVs! Get out of here! No! The SCVs, they do waddle into their deaths. Big EMPs on the Colossus. Vikings putting in a lot of work. Colossus goes down instantly. The second Colossus is going to go down as well. And HeRoMaRinE takes a big fight. At the same time, we have that one battlecruiser across the map. It finally gets cleaned up. Finally goes down. But Gabe has a lot of momentum. He gets his 5th base up and running. It survives. Now, can Trigger fight against this? The answer is he could with Disruptors. Now, we all know that, hey, a Protoss, they can be down 20, 30 supply. 1 or 2 good Purification Novas, and Trigger, he can take a fight. He can take a fight. For now, just going to be zoning the army back. Again, Disruptors, they are a great kind of comeback mechanic. Oh, no! Comeback mechanic. As 5 Marauders go down. This is what we're talking about. Sometimes 1 good Nova is all it takes. As Trigger takes a 5th base behind this. Sorry, 6th base even. Yo, we got nukes on the way. Liberators in production. So thankfully, even though Disruptors, they do have a lot of staying power in this army, Liberators do kind of change the dynamic of these armies and how they interact with each other. So good to see that HeRoMaRinE, he was able to tech up into Liberators in time. He's repositioning all of his tanks. Likewise, Trigger going to be rotating over towards that 3rd. Threatening an attack. Up! Some decent connections. Taking down the tower. A tank. Not too bad. Another double drop is being sent out across the map. Yo, we do have the nuke! Oh my god. As a couple of ghosts do get sniped, nuke has been spotted, is going to be avoided for the most part. Yep, okay. I was a little bit scared for a moment. But Gabe is playing with fire right now. Drop comes in and is going to focus down the Nexus. There's no shield battery, there's no overcharge, the Nexus goes down. Marauders, it doesn't take them too long to kill a base at all. Here comes another nuke. But this time it will not get off. This Gabe is even dropping into the natural as well. As he goes for another nuke, but this one does get spotted. Jesus, Gabe throwing down nukes all over the place. Uh-oh. Trigger? Okay, he sees. I was like, does he see? Does he know? He does. Does pull back in time. Good target firing. Disruptor does get picked off. HeRoMaRinE, he's just cutting the map in half, trying to fortify himself. And this wouldn't be a bad moment here for Trigger to try to transition into Skytoss as well. The game has stabilized for the most part. A lot of friendly fire from those tanks. Not a bad trade. Trading Zealots for a bio army. As Trigger blinks on forward, takes down one of those tanks. It's going to bleed out a lot of these gateway units. At the same time, we have another nuke here towards the south. Proxy has been spotted, and Trigger does pull back. Oh god! Only losing one of those workers. Yeah, HeRoMaRinE, he's got to be careful. Like, he's been throwing down a lot of nukes, and so far he hasn't really gotten too much value out of them. Nukes, they aren't free. Oh. I don't think anything's within... Yeah, I don't think anything's within range. So we have more nukes on the way, 2 being made at a time. Just constant nuking here from Cave. No big connections yet. This Trigger does... Oh god, no! No! Okay. Nova does connect. That was 1 second off from going off. Oh my god. 1 second away from a massive connection. Trigger, he does survive. He makes it out. Big Nova on the army. HeRoMaRinE, this attack is looking a little bit chaotic. Uh-oh. The nuke is going to land. Trigger pulls back in time. The base will fall at the same time. A massive DT counterattack takes down the northern base. So Trigger may have lost the Nexus, but likewise, so did Big Gabe. He didn't just lose the base, he lost 20 SCVs. Meanwhile, Trigger, he's double expanding. He's got plenty of bases on the way. And you can see that Trigger, his bank, sorry, HeRoMaRinE, his bank is not really there anymore. Again, these nukes have been really expensive, and he just keeps throwing them out, and now he can't really afford them. He can't afford to remax. They just haven't really been worth it. You could argue that all it takes is one. Like, all it takes is one big connection, and sure, the nuke more than pays for itself, but... just hasn't been working here for our Terran. There's the Stargate, there's the SkyToss transition. You love to see it. It's finally there. Trigger once again threatens a counterattack. More Marauders are getting shaved off. And it looks like HeRoMaRinE, he's calming down a little bit. You know, the nukes have ended for now. They have stopped. He's trying to establish another one of these bases. Liberators bullying back the ground army. At the same time, Trigger, he collapses on the third. Takes down every single ghost. And he's getting on top of the tanks as well. A really good trade here for Trigger. Takes down the ghost, takes down the tanks, is going for the base as well. Yeah, you can see Trigger just being able to outposition here. HeRoMaRinE taking down some Liberators, tanks. HeRoMaRinE just getting a little bit careless. Yeah, the CC did go down. Another nuke is on the way, but within range of the cannon. And good positioning from Trigger. Shuts down the ghost, shuts down the nuke. This base may fall, but I don't think Trigger cares. He just took 3 bases. Like, he can afford to lose a Nexus. It's not Trigger who's starving for money, it's HeRoMaRinE. He's trying to get another base up and running. Oof. Bit of an overextension from Trigger. Does bleed out a lot of gateway units. He's going for another counterattack. Big snipe on the Disruptor. Cancels the Nexus. Some mispathing as well. Trigger making a couple too many mistakes. Oh, not again. As he collapses on the army. Wasn't the cleanest engagement, but Trigger does hold. So another nuke is on the way. The army diving on forward. Good EMP on the army, but doesn't get the connections he's looking for. Another ghost goes down here. I mean, he scans. He finally gets eyes on these northern bases. He had no idea that they were taken earlier. He still hasn't seen the center base. He doesn't know. And again, that's why it didn't really matter too much that Trigger was losing that southern nexus. Meanwhile, Liberators are on the way to harass. Zoning nuke to just keep Trigger at bay. Zealot run by running past the planetary into another planetary, so Zealot's not really finding too much. Doing what they can. And here we go. HeRoMaRinE, he finally gets eyes on the bases as well. On 12 o'clock. Oh god. The Novas! They find good enough connections. The splits are not good enough. Oof. As HeRoMaRinE is getting damage done, to be fair, takes down a base here towards the south. We have Liberators wreaking havoc towards the north. Damage is done, but Trigger, he has a bank to work with. And we're not quite going into Skytoss yet. I guess we don't really have the bank for it, especially after all the Liberator harass. But Trigger, he's taking the bases of Gabe. He has the freedom to do so. Not too many minerals to work with here, but he's going to get it up and running, nonetheless. But yeah, I'm just really surprised that Trigger, he hasn't... I mean, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised that he hasn't tried to go into Carriers or Tempest. I do think they'd work really well here. He doesn't have the biggest bank. He doesn't have the best economy, to be fair, but... earlier, I do think he did. So he's now mining from those gas geysers once again. Okay, we're taking another base. Oh god, the Disruptors! They are exposed. One, two of them go down. We can even get a third. Not a bad moment for Gabe. Just continuing to pump out more Liberators. And again, like, that's why we need Skytoss. That's why we need Tempest. Nexus is in a lot of danger. Disruptors are being targeted down. We are going to clean up this drop, to be fair. It was a costly trade for HeRoMaRinE. And Trigger, he can push through the center now. There are no tanks in position. Uh-oh. Trigger, he can actually push into the main from this position. Another nuke going to be threatening Trigger. Liberators once again looking very exposed. Where is the ground army? Liberators are going down one after another. Oof. That was... that was 14, sorry. 18 Liberators just went down. In that one fight. That's actually insane. That's crazy. You can see 15 were sieged and 3 were unsieged. And that may have just been it. HeRoMaRinE just losing far too much too quickly. The northern base is back up and running. Four tanks, 8 ghosts as well. It's a very efficient fight for Trigger. Yeah, and our Terran player just cannot keep up with this. We do have a couple of nukes, and this time they are going to connect. Up. Not too bad. 11 probes finally go down, but at this point, it may just be too late. Oh, once again, the cannon. It may just be too little too late. HeRoMaRinE is going for one big Hail Mary play, sends everything across the map to sniper base, and he's going to get it. He's going to get the Nexus, but he's going to lose so much more. I did feel like that was kind of the last hurrah for HeRoMaRinE. Still has a ground army, to be fair. He has units on the ground, but especially against all these disruptors, we only need half decent connections and we're getting them. This Gabe is just trying to control his heart out. Remember, this all started with proxy battlecruisers. Bear that in mind. Proxy BCs. Animal. As HeRoMaRinE just loses almost everything. GG gets called and a Trigger fights back, tying up the series 1-1. GG. Let's go. We have a series. We're going all the way to game number 3. Oh my god. And now the question becomes, in game 3, are we going to see battlecruisers again for a third? We've seen them every game so far in this series. Game 1 and game 2. We have to, right? We have to. Oh. But yeah, that was a wild game. Again, it did feel like HeRoMaRinE was maybe a little bit too overconfident, especially in the mid game. Remember when we saw like 3 nukes being thrown down at a time, ghosts being sent out a little bit carelessly, maybe HeRoMaRinE just tunnel visioning a little bit too much, and just being a little bit too wasteful, maybe not really anticipating Trigger to be able to keep up with him. Impressive stuff. Impressive. GG, well played. Now we're getting into the ace match. Catching up. I was eating this really spicy noodle thing because I missed dinner because I was playing, so the spice kept me wide awake for the first 4 series. It's good to hear. Like, Poppy, my mouth was burning. Oh, but I played StarCraft. That's good. And here we go. We're getting into our next game, into the final game of this best of 3 series. Spawning in the top left hand corner of Dragon Scales, we have the German Terran player representing Team Mouse. It is HeRoMaRinE. It's really spicy. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. Hope it did you well. See, really, you should have gotten a second spicy noodle. It kept you awake for the first 4. You needed it for the last one. Spawning in the bottom right hand corner, we have the Canadian Protoss representing Team Basilisk, fighting back in that last game, tying up the series 1-1, forcing the ace match. It is a Trigger. Big A was talking about trolling me on the German stream, but I guess it was Trigger he really trolled. Gabe, he can be really cocky at times. I mean, he has the skill to back it up, so we can afford to be cocky, but yeah, it happens. Tis known. But making for really entertaining and really wild games. I don't think the cook was going to give another one out for free because I missed it. Ah, fair. Yeah, for sure. All good. All good, Papi, all good. As we do see a racked expand being set up, was a single gas opener, so very economic here out of HeRoMaRinE. Very similar to game number 2, if you remember. Very similar to Gressvan, but that did not stop Big Gabe from going for something crazy like a proxy starport, and my eyes are peeled. We'll see if he does it again. HomeStory Cup was so fun. One day, Papi, one day. I'd love to be a part of it. It's just, you know, I'm on the other side of the world. Australia, it's pretty far away from Germany, and as a result, it's pretty expensive. It's pretty expensive trying to go there. Trigger is going for a Twilight Council opener. Again, it's what we saw in the previous game as well. So far, stock standard. Reaper does dip in. He's just going to be disrupting some of the economy here. Does get eyes on the Twilight Council, if I'm not mistaken. Quickly checking. Yep, he did see the Twilight Council, so he's fully aware that he doesn't have to worry about oracles or phoenixes. He is able to be quite comfortable behind this. And the starport is at home. The starport is back at home. HeRoMaRinE, this time not proxying. He's crazy, but he's crazy. He's playing standard. It's very possible that after losing game number 2, maybe he was humbled at least a little bit by Trigger. So as crazy as game 1 and game 2 have been, it's possible that HeRoMaRinE, he may take this a little bit more seriously and a little bit more standard in his approach. He's calming down. He's calming down. Oh. God. Austria and Germany are right next to each other. Este Einstein. Get out of here. You're an animal. As we are going to be moving out, we have our Reaper towards the south, Hellion towards the north again, just looking for some scouting information, trying to get a read on things. We do get eyes on the third base location. And the medevac drop is moving out. Interesting, it's only a single Widow Mine with this drop, so not the most committed. Again, the purpose here is just really for more scouting information than anything, as he's getting into his 3-1-1 setup back at home. Fuérate de aquí. And here we go, the mine is going in. At the same time, the Hellion and Reaper also dive all the way into the main. Oh! Very quick reaction. The Widow Mine does get targeted down. Meanwhile, the Hellion is able to get a probe. Looking for a second, and he will find one. 2 probes, not too bad. Not too bad. Especially considering that our Terran was able to just confirm the lack of gateways, the third base, the robo. Soon to be the Robotics Bay, I imagine. Yep, there we go. There's Robotics Bay. We're getting into Colossi. Oh. Okay, as HeRoMaRinE doesn't go for a third base, he throws down 2 more Raxes. Now, this doesn't have to be a 2-base all-in. This could just be a delayed third from HeRoMaRinE. But considering how aggressive he's been this entire series and how chaotic he's been, it's very possible that he is just getting ready for that 2-base all-in, especially considering he's hiding those Raxes behind his mineral line. Good catch from Big... Oh, never mind! I was going to say good catch killing that Observer, but Trigger! Very quick to save it. Very quick to focus down that auto turret. Drop is being set up. Colossus are on the way. And this is going to be a pretty powerful timing here from Gabe. With +1, Stim, Combat Shields. He's going to have, what, 4 tanks by the time the push does arrive. It's going to be pretty terrifying. And Trigger still needs to get a read on what's going on. As back at home, he's working on +1. The Gateway Explosion is upon us, so he can reinforce his army quite well. But here comes that push from Gabe. Is he going to pull the boys with this? I'm curious. I'm very curious. As the tanks do move out, they lead the charge. At the same time, we have that drop into the main base. Looking to depower. Can they deny +1? They're going to try to, but... yeah, there are plenty of pylons within range. A second pylon goes down. At the same time, Trigger does meet the army. He's going to be able to slow it down. Does force a siege. This Trigger takes a couple of volleys to the face. You can see Trigger dancing with the army, trying to force another siege. Does get off a force field. Now he can focus on his defense. The drop has been dealt with. Oh, it's still going to be very close. Big Colossus swipes, but there's the disable. The Raven doesn't quite have enough energy for another. Overcharge is popped. Disable is about to run out, but we don't have enough Zealots. We don't have enough on the ground. HeRoMaRinE, he's busting on through, takes down the first Colossus, is looking to take down the second, and Trigger, there's just almost nothing left. Again, he was having a really hard time defending back at home and also trying to slow down the main push as well. Did miss out on some warp ins. He does have 2 Colossus remaining. He does have another warp in available. But the tanks are within range, and it looks like Trigger, he can't hold on to this Nexus. It's going to go down. Yeah, Vikings are even arriving. There's no anti-air. Trigger trying to hold on, and he had a pretty intense game too, but here in game 3, GG gets called, and HeRoMaRinE pulls off the 2 base all in, taking the series 2-1. GG. And honestly, a series that he needed to take. We did cast earlier that HeRoMaRinE, he had a really hard time against both Solar and Skillous. We had some pretty rough series then and there, so HeRoMaRinE, he needed this win for his standings in the group. GG. Well played. Trigger, just getting that NA experience for the most part. Just, you know, getting a bit of that taste of home in game 1 and game 2. Game 3 was more straightforward. Regardless, congratulations to HeRoMaRinE for taking the series in the end, taking down Trigger 2-1, and being able to redeem himself after game 2. Very well done.